does the Iron Neck go through every single range of motion to offer like flexion, extension, lateral flexion, rotation, all that? Does it hit every single aspect of the neck?
Yes and no. So there are a couple of movements that Iron Neck is not designed to do the same way that like a traditional harness might, or a four-way neck machine, which is not going to be something used in a chiropractic setting. But the traditional flexion extension doesn't really work with Iron Neck. Now
Hmm.
you can turn sideways, and the resistance is going to be from the side, and you can go fully up and down. But Iron Neck is essentially designed to move the way the neck muscles move naturally, right?
Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of the Expect Miracles podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kevin Pecca, and today's episode is sponsored by uccnearme.com. Find an upper cervical chiropractor near you on uccnearme.com. I am very excited for today's guest. His name is Robert Sherman, and he's one of the co-founders of the Iron Neck. And I'm so excited to dive into this today. The product has been featured on the Joe Rogan podcast. You have Mark Zuckerberg using it. You have Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, a lot of famous athletes, and it's working wonders for their neck. And not only is it for high potential athletes, it's also working its way into the rehab chiropractic neck care space, and I'm so excited to dive in today. So without further ado, please welcome Robert Sherman. Rob, how are you today?
Kevin, I'm good. I'm excited to dig into this conversation here.
Absolutely. So, Robert, I'm always fascinated how these products start, and you guys have come such a long way with this product, and it's only really just beginning. We kind of spoke about how it's working its way into the neck rehabilitation and upper cervical chiropractic. A lot of upper cervical chiropractors are using it now. So, Robert, what was the idea behind this product, and when did it start?
Yeah, so Iron X origins were really in concussion prevention in the NFL and college football. The inventor, Mike Jolly, he played football and wrestled at UCLA in the early 80s. And he had some close teammates who went on to have long NFL careers. And, these guys got brain damage, CTE, lives ruined. And it got Mike digging into how can you prevent CTE? How can you get further ahead of this beginning in youth sports? And that digging led him to research led by a number of relevant names: Dr. Robert Cantu, who's on the NFL Head, Neck, and Spine Committee, concussion researchers, Don Comstock, Christy Collins. And what was unique was that this was the first piece of research that put real numbers to the relationship between neck strength and concussion risk. And what they found, and this was a study of about 7,000 high school male and female athletes across multiple sports, was that for every 1 pound increase in neck strength, the odds of concussion decreased by 5%. So you can't bulletproof any athlete, but a weaker neck is more likely to result in a concussion. There was also research revealing that the potential threats around rotational and torsional forces deeper within the brain and potential links to CTE. David Camarillo out of Stanford, he's done a lot of great research in this area. And, from there, having this clarity around the importance of neck strength and also ways to counter these rotational forces, this concept was born. It was prototyped and pretty quickly brought to the NFL Combine, the College Strength and Conditioning Coach Conference, and we sold a dozen NFL teams, about 30 college programs. The proof of concept was there. The original device was about 15 pounds, so it was
Mm.
not particularly comfortable. Certainly was not something that was going to get in the doors of rehab clinics, but the concept and the approach was effective. So that was around 2013, 2014. In 2016, we redesigned and launched a 6 pound version of the Iron Neck. And since then, I mean, we've been through dozens of iterative improvements. We got the weight down to 3 pounds, ultimately to where
Wow.
it is today at 2 pounds.
Wow.
And, these improvements were driven mainly by adoption and interest from the chiropractic and physical therapy community. And, our guiding mantra all along was that this needs to work for everyone,
Mm.
from heavyweight UFC fighters and NFL linemen to the kyphotic grandmothers in clinic and middle-aged desk workers dealing with cervicogenic headaches and forward head posture. And so that's been the evolution. Today 9 out of 10 customers are using IronX specifically to treat neck pain and postural issues. We're in a little bit under 1,000 PT and chiropractic clinics, which sounds like a lot, but that's still under 1% of the whole market in the U.S. And so while neck health is still widely overlooked, we're not going anywhere. We recognize that neither are our clinical customers. It's a very safe place to be when you look at, all the technological, forces that are drawing our heads down and, all of those factors. So, yeah, it's been an evolution. We're still, very much in the sports space and focused on concussion prevention, but much more broadly, it's serving people that are dealing with neck pain, postural issues. And really, I think something that's unifying in a lot of this is people that have kind of gone through a lot of the process, right? They've gone and seen their chiropractor, they've bought massage products, they've, you
Mm-hmm.
know, CBD topicals, traction, right? And these are all important pieces to the puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
but few of them are really getting deep at the root cause, right? A lot of these are short-term relief. They can contribute towards a long-term kind of roadmap, but neck strength is just one of these things that even 10 years in continues just to be not on the radar for most people. But in PT clinics and chiropractic settings, obviously the neck is 100% involved in any chiropractic visit, and so. Yeah, that's the evolution of the business and the product.
Very cool. And so, Robert, you're speaking my language here. The reason I got into the upper cervical work was because I had an ice hockey concussion. And for 5 years, I had dizziness and brain fog and migraines. And it's a scary place to be because you don't know how to get better. There's not a lot of information, there's not a lot of neck rehabilitation devices. And I found upper cervical and it gave me my life back. And what I'm noticing now in the clinic is alignment is so important, and that's what I focus on is getting that upper neck stabilized, realigned to help dissipate those post concussion symptoms. But I have so many people that once it's in alignment, they say, "What can I do to strengthen my neck to help the alignments hold?" And neck strength is huge when it comes to rehabilitating and having the alignment stay in place and hold. And so now what you're telling me is the device is down to 2 pounds, and you guys are moving. When you see a lot of the Iron Neck infomercials in the past, you see a lot of big athletes wearing the device, and I love how you guys are moving into the rehab space now. You've made the device lighter, and it's working for everyone. So I'm excited to implement this in my own clinic just to see how it stabilizes and helps, like you were telling me, the grandmothers, the desk workers, because it seems like it's a device for every single person and not just the athlete.
Yeah, and I think most people are turned off initially because Iron Neck looks like a medieval torture device that's going to do more harm than good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a default reaction. You can't really, you see this thing, it doesn't look like, oh, this is going to fix my neck pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we've made it smaller, lighter, functionally better, but there's no easy way to make it look
Right.
naturally therapeutic.
Yeah.
So, we lean into the real success of our customers, the success that they have across chiropractors, physical therapists, really, and everyday people trying to get back to 100% and put their neck problems behind them.
And Robert, so when you first start off rehabilitating people's necks, you're going to want to start off at a very light setting to see if they can tolerate the strengthening exercises. What is the lightest resistance?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways that you can use Iron X. So one is it comes standard with a resistance band. These increase in resistance from they start at 3 feet, you get to the max resistance at 9 feet. So the stock band that comes with it is 25 pounds at the max, but you can access very low levels of resistance by stepping out just a few inches beyond
Hmm.
that 3 feet, right? We also have a couple of heavier bands for your heavyweight fighters and
Hmm.
NFL athletes, and then we've got a couple lighter bands that are more catered to the rehab community. So those are a 5 pound band, a 10 pound band, and what's great with those is that you control the resistance with your feet, right? So you really just want to have have it so that you feel a little bit challenged through your kinetic chain, right? So if you're
Mhm.
facing the resistance band, you back up, it's pulling your head forward. Your posterior chain needs to really activate from top to bottom, and so you can do that with as light as a pound
Mhm.
with these lighter bands. The other way, and this is a little more common in a clinical setting, is clipping into any cable weight stack or pulley
Mhm.
system. So that could be, air weight, a digital resistance, and you have a little bit more control there, right? You can literally dial up a pound or 2 pounds. And one of the things that you'll see is that individuals are going to be weaker in different planes. So generally you see the person turn back around and now their anterior chain is engaged. These are the text neck muscles, right? I mean, they're going to struggle at the same resistance that you might have done facing it. So that's one of the benefits of using a resistance band, is that you can immediately adjust based on uh, how you feel, more or less. But you have a little bit more control if you are using a pulley system. Plus, once you back up with a pulley, it's at that weight, right? It's 5 pounds is locked on there. It doesn't matter once you have it up if you're 2 feet back or 6 feet back. Um, some of the movements, like our lock neck body turn, where you're rotating your torso, the resistance might change a little bit because the distance of the resistance band is changing. So there's a couple options. The third, which is actually both seen in a clinical setting, but also in some of these high performance training settings, like Formula One, IndyCar, MMA fighters, where the trainer or clinician will hold the
Mm.
resistance band manually and work around. So it's really cool in an F1 or IndyCar setting where they're actually trying to simulate the forces around the neck
Very
as you're
cool.
turning. But in a clinical setting, it's most clinicians are doing some form of manual resistance. This is just a tool that you can intervene and have a little bit more control, a little more you can do with it. So there's a few different ways to integrate it.
Very cool. And does the Iron Neck go through every single range of motion to offer like flexion, extension, lateral flexion, rotation, all that? Does it hit every single aspect of the neck?
Yes and no. So there are a couple of movements that Iron Neck is not designed to do the same way that like a traditional harness might, or a four-way neck machine, which is not going to be something used in a chiropractic setting. But the traditional flexion extension doesn't really work with Iron Neck. Now
Hmm.
you can turn sideways, and the resistance is going to be from the side, and you can go fully up and down. But Iron Neck is essentially designed to move the way the neck muscles move naturally, right? These are predominantly diagonal fibers. When they contract, that your head is rotating, and so yeah. So the six foundational movements are really where every individual will start, and these put your head and neck in every position that you can be in under load and tension. So these movements, the 360 spin, where you're keeping everything upright and you're just rotating with your feet in 360 degrees, this is a really good warm up for most people. This gets every muscle in the neck firing as you're rotating. Protraction, retraction, which is very common exercise that you're doing. One of the benefits with Iron Neck is that you can very quickly go from, if you're facing the band in retraction, you can very quickly now turn the other way and go into protraction. You don't have a band that is kind of pulling at your hair or sticky. So some of the benefits, it's not like protraction, retraction are different than what you'd be doing with a band, but there are some elements of convenience that we've heard from individuals and people in clinic, that these are some of the benefits of it. And then there's multiplanar movements. So there's diagonals and figure eights, and so these are really going through a full diagonal motion. And when you do these facing the resistance versus facing away from the resistance, or some of these you're facing sideways, the neck, what you're experiencing throughout the muscles is completely different.
Hmm.
So this is generally where people start. Some of these exercises, we've gotten really good feedback from PTs and chiropractors where, let's say someone has, pain rotating their neck, and you don't really want to turn their neck very much. Lock neck body turn is a great movement because you're rotating at your hips, but as you are rotating your upper body, you're sending the contractions around the neck
Hmm.
so that all these muscles are firing. You start to get blood flowing through these muscles. And, the feedback that we've gotten is that you actually start to see a little bit of rotation or a little less pain in some of these rotational positions come as a result of that. So even though that's a movement that we might have as like third or fourth that you would do, some clinics actually put that at first, depending on the individual. So the six foundational movements are where everyone starts. From there, we looked at our customers. This was 3 or 4 years ago now, and we did a deep dive and we found, what are these kind of distinct pockets that we can create a little bit more of this handheld experience for an individual, right? You have a trainer, you have a PT or chiropractor that's walking you through, and so we developed very distinct roadmaps that address early stage rehab, postures or posture mechanics, active aging, tactical athletes, so anything first responders, military, and then we obviously have a set of athlete specific protocols. So, if you're a football player, if you're a combat sport athlete, any type of rotational sport, golf, tennis, really any throwing. There's a lot of connection between the shoulder and neck that is underexplored, and well, it's being explored with a lot of the customers that we have because a lot of them tend to be more of the kind of forward-thinking innovators, MacGyvers, if you will. And so some of this has kind of been explored there. So the whole concept is that there are very simple exercises that you can do with Iron Neck, starting very simple. And I think what's important for especially within the upper cervical community, I think we don't expect for there to be any steps skipped, right? Iron Neck isn't necessarily the first thing a patient should touch. It's a tool probably best introduced after upper cervical alignment has been addressed, basic motor control is reestablished, and I think I've kind of mentioned that, like, it's not one size fits all, especially in that community.
Hmm.
Uh, Performance focused or neuromuscular rehab clinics often see a faster fit, but for condition based upper cervical practices, iron neck may only be relevant for a subset of patients, or it might be something that comes in a couple few weeks or a couple months in for some people, and that's okay. I think like our position has always been, especially through the relationships with chiropractors and PTs, that like we want to understand like where does this fit in. It's
Right.
not going to be one size fits all for everyone, and so that's been really helpful in terms of how we continue to develop programs, getting feedback from those individuals as well.
Very nice. And so, if somebody's just wants to go get the iron neck, and let's say they don't really have a physician that they're working with, but they really want to try it, do you guys have like videos or pamphlets where they can just kind of start, where it's safe and effective, and they don't really know how to even start? Do you guys offer that as well?
Yeah, no, we've got a great out of the box onboarding program. We have an extensive library, majority of free programs, and then we have additional lines of paid programs that go much deeper if you're in a clinical setting or whatnot. And we, like I said, we started with these six foundational movements. We expanded into some of these that are if you are early stage rehab or you have more severe postural issues, we have a very set protocol that we worked with PTs, chiropractors, strength and conditioning coaches, athletic trainers. We've gotten really good feedback to develop these programs, which are built on top of these six foundational movements, and often we'll bring in other auxiliary components with bands where any type of Ys, Ts, rows, pale off press, right? I mean, these are things you can dial down to very light resistance, and I think anything that we've seen that has been adopted by um, in the strength and conditioning world with elite athletes from a performance and injury prevention standpoint, and then we're also seeing this done in a rehab setting. Those are the ones where like that's a winner, right?
Hmm.
And all you're really doing is adjusting the load, right? If
Right.
you're an elite athlete, you might be doing a pull-off press with 30, 40 pounds. You're never going to do that in a clinical setting, right? You might
Right.
just add 5 pounds. I mean, that might even be much for an elderly patient. So we have those, and then we've also done more specific tracks with specialists in that space. So, we've done very football specific ones throughout the whole season, and then we've also shot stuff with physical therapists and chiropractors that really offer much more of the handheld approach. First phase of a program, for example, is really just getting back into a neutral position. Can you get there? And some oftentimes they'll just do it with the device on, not clicked into a resistance source, so you're not engaging the muscles isometrically through an exercise. And obviously, going from 15 to 6 to 3 to now 2 pounds is, a good direction to go, and opens the door for more patients that might have been more sensitive to this being 6 pounds.
You're right. And Robert, where do you see the Iron Neck in 5 years? Where would you guys like to be? And if any changes, or where do you guys see yourself in 5 years? Where would you like to take the product?
Well, I'd say the big thing I would like to see is less about the product than it is about awareness in neck strengthening, because that still continues to be the number one challenge. Is that your neck hurts. Neck strengthening isn't even on your checklist. You're not even
Right.
thinking about it. Most people might think like, oh, I slept on it wrong. I can't do anything to my neck muscles or it's going to make it worse. And I've always dubbed that the I'm fine mentality, right? Like
Right.
it's not good, it's been worse, like I just leave it as is. And I think that's a bit discouraging for not just the individuals, but a clinician who is working with an individual is like, that's not what you want as an output, right? Like you want people to get back to 100%. So I would love for there to be more awareness, more recognition that neck strengthening is is not just valuable, but it's critical. So that's one piece. As far as Iron Neck goes, the vision has always been for this device to be smarter, right? Can you get more feedback on your range of motion, the amount of resistance that you're able to go through, any type of imbalance that can be measured. And so those are some of the areas that we've wanted to incorporate. The way that we designed IronX 3.0, which we launched a couple of years ago, is designed in that capacity. So these are things that we've been thinking about. VR is something that we've also considered, and
Very cool.
some of these are things we've kind of been going through the development process. Other things have come about through some of the partnerships that we've had. Netcare is obviously a company that y'all are very familiar with.
Hmm.
This is a great example of a couple of things that each company is doing that the other is not, right? And so a lot of those measurements, and there's a number of chiropractors that are using both these products now, and we're getting amazing feedback from them. There's a number of research studies that both products are being plugged into, and so just the whole idea of like Iron Neck is the best at what it does. If you use it and you dance with it on, it's going to work, right?
Hmm.
But there is the vision of and this is where the training lab programs that we developed came about, is how can we be more intentional? How can the clinician be more intentional based on any condition to implement Iron Neck in the most optimal way? And so we see that as really the path forward. And the other aspect being what Netcare is super focused on, which is proprioception, and this marriage between proprioception training and neck muscle strengthening. It really is this 1-2 punch that if you're doing both these things, there's just no way that you're not going to see better results faster.
And so, Robert, one of the big conditions I work with is the vagus nerve. A lot of people have a lot of vagus nerve issues. They seek upper cervical chiropractic care for. You were mentioning that you've also had some success with the product in the vagus nerve issues.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I mean, this came to us from a customer of ours, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and his name is Sterling Cooley. He actually wrote an in-depth piece about how the vagus nerve function is impacted not just by misalignment, but by the stability of the musculature around the atlas. And that really got us thinking differently about how Iron Neck could help people, beyond pain relief. So there's this like vagus nerve function and how it's related to, and really depends on structural support. And then there's other aspects that he made a point in his article that stuck with me, that most people treat neck weakness as an afterthought, but when those muscles aren't doing their job right, the body loses its sense of spatial
Yeah,
awareness, and
proprioception.
that can have ripple effects on posture, balance, blood pressure, even stress regulation. So the adjustment puts things back in place. This is what he had originally shared with us, but strengthening is what keeps them there. And that's where Iron Neck fits. It complements upper cervical care by retraining the deep stabilizers around the atlas without really stressing the joint.
Hmm.
And so, and this is something that wasn't even on our radar. It's not like this is a huge population that's dealing with vagus nerve issues, but it's one that, there's, people that struggle with it. I mean, it could last for years
Hmm.
and it can completely change your life. So, um, yeah, very, very interesting area that I think just the fact that it was brought to us from a customer and then we kind of dig in, we get feedback from other, PTs and chiropractors, and it's like, oh, actually, there is something here that, there's other solutions to vagus nerve issues, but none of them are really focused on strengthening the neck to keep things in place once you've made these adjustments. So, um, I think that's an area that we'd love to be able to explore more. And I think, especially within the upper cervical chiropractor community where maybe there is a little bit of learning to kind of go through around, is this safe? Who do I use this on? Like when in process do I use it with? you know that's an area that I think there's a lot of learning that our patients or our customers can go through. And the conversations that we're having with some of our customers in the space, Cameron Bearder, John Chung, John Sternberg, the feedback that we're getting is incredibly valuable around where does Iron Neck fit in some of these different unique cases. So that's an area that we're very excited to continue to explore this year and certainly beyond.
Love it. And Robert, at the end of all my shows, I like to ask all my guests, what is one piece of advice that you have gotten through the years that really resonated with you that you would like to give the audience? Could be absolutely anything.
Yeah, it's probably cliche, but and I don't know if there's a Rocky quote or it's probably been. I know it's a Rocky quote, but it's been quoted other places too.
Love
But
it.
it's not about how you get many times you get knocked down. It's about how you get back up and growing a small business from
Mm,
practically nothing to where we're at today. And I can think of three or four times in the history of this company over the past decade that should have absolutely wiped us out, right?
hmm.
And I'd say for the most part, we've always bounced back stronger. Sometimes we refer to these things as the expensive education, right?
Hmm.
But we've come a long way, and I think what's been most impactful has always been listening to our customers really closely. All the product development that we've done, the training lab programs that we've done, just how we think about the experience, that has always been wrapped into how are people using this on the front lines? What are their problems with it? And it's not easy to get something to fit comfortably on people's heads because
Hmm.
they're all different shapes, different sizes. Most people don't even want anything near their head.
Yeah.
And so, some of these challenges came down to like, how do we dial in the exact right foam density, right? That was one of these things that almost sunk the company early
Yeah.
on.
It's crazy.
And we kept looking. We found people at a conference that had really good foam, and we were able to, incorporate that, and that got us back onto a better track than we would have been previously. So, those are generally going to be opportunities. Running out of product around Black Friday, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're certainly not alone in that, but you end up getting a lot of frustrated, angry customers, and
Yeah.
those are always opportunities to
It's like you guys are
wow them
doing
with your
so
customer
good.
experience.
You ran out of product and then another problem arises.
It's the better problem to
Yes, it's a
have
good
for
problem to
sure,
have. Yeah.
but it's an example. I think that any negative is there's going to be an opportunity for positive next step.
Mm,
And it might not be easy to kind of see that in the moment, but I think at this point, like we've been through that so many times, not the running out of, it's happened obviously a couple few times, but incidents like those within the company that we just know, that like there's better days ahead. We can solve these, and usually there's going to be learnings from those that are going to actually put us in a better position than we were.
yeah.
So I think that's relevant in any industry, whether you're an athlete, whatever profession you're in. It's applicable.
Beautiful. And Robert, where can people find Iron Neck on social media and where can they buy the product?
Yeah, you can find us iron-neck.com. You can obviously Google Iron Neck. We're at the Iron Neck across all social media. And you can DM, reach out to us. You can email us at support@iron-neck.com. Always happy to, help anyone and have conversations that might advance, consideration of neck training.
Beautiful. Robert, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, educating us about Iron Neck, and would love to have you back on anytime.
Absolutely. Appreciate the time.
All right.